Educational design to me transcends all spaces that children learn, play, and thrive in. If you want to create independence, you have to let your children be independent and not have to step in. Sometimes I think when grown-ups are doing everything for their children, they're taking away the skills that their children need to learn because it's quicker and easier for you.
Hi, I'm Chris Shrubsole and welcome to School Talk, the podcast where we have meaningful conversations about education, learning, and those issues that matter most to students, to parents, and to teachers. With over 10 years experience in international schools, I've seen firsthand the challenges but also the opportunities in learning today. Each week, I'll sit down with inspiring guests to share stories, insights, and strategies on how we can help shape the future of education. Whether you're here to grow, to learn, or to spark change, this is the place for you. So let's get started. Hello, welcome back to another episode of School Talk. This week, I'm joined by Hollie Mays, an educational interior designer. So first of all, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
And educational design. What does that mean to you?
Educational design to me transcends all spaces that children learn, play, and thrive in. And I believe that a children's environment has a huge impact on their social and academic development.
You're saying that they thrive in, that could be at home, at school. Where are we talking?
That could be anywhere. That could be at home, that could be at school, that could be in the garden, that could be at soft play.
In terms of that educational space there, or that space in general, do you think every space has the potential to enhance education, enhance learning activities?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I think you can't stop a child from learning. It's impossible. It's in their DNA and it's how they grow up. It's how their brain develops. And so if you know that fact already, let's make every space enhancing for them to be able to learn even more.
Yeah. And then, so making enhancing that improves their ability to focus, to engage, to concentrate, those things there?
Yeah, so it helps them with the core life skills. So at essence, why do we go to school? We go to school because we're learning how to learn. And what do we do before school is we take care of all the foundations of education, of life, of learning, and it starts from birth. So it starts from home. When your little one is learning how to hold a spoon and feed themselves, that's still learning. It just escalates as they get older.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You started out as an educational designer. You started out within teaching.
I started out as a teacher.
Yeah.
So I got into teaching by accident, actually. I didn't mean to. I was working as an actress, trying to earn a few pennies whilst I was resting, also known as not working.
Yeah.
And I got a job as a teaching assistant in a school. And I said to the headmaster, oh, please just put me anywhere like year 2 and above because I'm not really into the small children. And then I got the job and I was a teaching assistant in a reception class, which is FS2 here. And I thought, oh my God, are you kidding? That's like the worst news ever. And 3 weeks into the term, I was like, I want to be a primary school teacher. This is the most amazing thing I've ever done in my whole life.
Yeah.
And I totally fell in love with it. And then 15 years later, I was still in education. And then I became a mummy to twins. And when you become a mum, you meet new people and you kind of go to new houses and have little play dates. And people would come over to my house. I was living in Singapore at the time, which is small apartment living. And people would come over and I'd do like a little setup for the kids to play. And these other mums would be like, oh my goodness. And I'd think, oh,
this is just, that was just normal to you?
Yeah, because I think because you've grown up around it and you don't realize that parents don't know everything that teachers have been studying for years and years. And so I kind of thought, oh, hang on, this is not a secret. Look, let me share all these tips and tricks with you so you can drink your coffee while it's hot. And so your children are learning and thriving at home as well as when they're at nursery or when they're at school or wherever they are in any environment, they should be thriving. And so then I'd go to people's houses and they'd say, oh, can you just look at this? Or could you just tell me this? And I'd be like, well, if you put this piece of furniture here instead of there, and if you clear these toys here, then you could get attention skills and focus skills and concentration skills and all these other life skills that we want our children to learn. You can do it by just changing a few things in your environment. And so that's kind of how educational design was born.
Nice. Yeah, because I did a podcast with two ladies who are year one teachers, and their curriculum is play-based learning. So like you said before, if parents hear the word learning through play, they're a bit like, is that a thing? But the setup and the thought and the resources that go into it are huge. And if
Huge.
you don't know how to kind of manipulate them, and like you said there, put them in the right place and let them explore different things at different times, to somebody who's not educated in that field, it looks chaos, doesn't it?
It looks like total chaos. But what you've got to think is, imagine your child's face when you drop them off, if they go to nursery or if they go to FS1, FS2, nursery reception. And what they do is, the first thing they do when they walk in the room is they look around and they go, oh. And what they're doing is they're looking for which invitation to play or invitation to learn they would like to go and access. So the teacher's not put out all the things in an early years classroom by mistake. Everything is planned, everything is meticulous, everything has been chosen for a reason. We need you to develop your fine motor skills because you need to be able to hold a pencil, to be able to do your handwriting in year one. You've got to be able to do that. So here are the tools that I'm going to put out today. You've got to be able to develop language skills. So I'm going to ask you to make a bridge whilst we're studying the Billy Goat's Gruff, and I'm going to put marshmallows and dried spaghetti out for you. And then all the talking and the communication. No, we've got to do this. Oh, no, wait, let's do that. That's all communication and language skills. So it looks like children are just playing with marshmallows and spaghetti. But what they're actually doing is they're developing language skills, communication skills, social skills. They're developing all of these academic skills that we want them to enhance in the early years, so that when they get older, actually the environment has provided them with this learning platform that makes everything else easier.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so that's a school environment. Talk to us the difference between a well-designed school environment and a well-designed home environment.
So there is a clear difference. The clearest difference to me is that you can really personalize your home environment. So you can make that 100% personalized to your child or your children. If they are struggling with something, you could set up a mini station that they could practice whatever it was that they needed to practice, whether it was math skills or fine motor or gross motor, whatever it was. In a school environment, you are trying to do a one-size-fits-all or one-size-fits-majority. And so to be able to really personalize and hone in on the skills that your children need, I think is a gift.
Yeah. For some context, in our living room in there, we've got a TV, and then below it, there's 4 different cupboards. And you open the cupboards and it's chaos in all of them. You've got teddies, you've got books, but there's no organization to it. Is that hindering? Is that a bad thing?
So let me ask you a question in return. When one of your children goes in the cupboard, do they pull everything out looking for something that they want?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And the second question would be then, do they say, Daddy, where's the whatever it is? Where's the teddy? Where's this puzzle? Daddy, can you get me this? Daddy, I can't find this.
Yes.
So then the skills that you want to teach your children is you want to teach them how to be independent, and you want to teach them how to be problem solvers, which is what we're trying to do in senior school. But it starts from a young age. So if you want your children to be independent, they have to open the cupboard and be able to get out what they need rather than pulling absolutely everything out and creating chaos. If they need something like, oh, I've lost the piece to the jigsaw puzzle, or I really want glue to make a birthday card for mummy or whatever. Do they know where the glue sticks live, and can they just go and get it without asking an adult for help? Because otherwise you're taking that independence off them.
Yeah.
And you're not providing them with the solution is, well, what do you need to solve the problem? If you want to stick the pom-poms onto the birthday card, where do the glue sticks live? Oh yeah, I can go do that by myself. I don't need you. Like, I can solve my own problem.
Yeah. In my head, I'm just rearranging that whole room in there. So talk to us a bit about, you said there that you want learning environments that create independence and things like that. You said you touched on bits of it there, but what would be your key bits of advice for a parent if you want to create independence in a learning environment? What things should you follow?
So if you want to create independence, you have to let your children be independent and not have to step in, which is what we were just saying. So you have to make sure that they have an environment where they can access their own toys. That doesn't mean that they can access it as in they pull out one basket and tip everything out on the floor, because If someone came into your office and pulled out all your files, or maybe cables, should I say cables on a podcast instead of files,
cables,
paperwork?
files, yeah.
If someone came out and pulled out your whole cable box,
Yeah.
or you did in search for one item and then left it there, would you then think, oh, this is a lovely space to work in?
Yeah.
You wouldn't. It's overwhelming. It's a mess. And so you have to take a step back and think, okay, I'm going to pretend that I'm my child going into their workspace. Play is a child's work.
Yeah.
And that's how we really have to think of it. What we need to do is take a step back and take a step down. So go into their play space, go next to your cupboard, go to their bedroom, go to their playroom, wherever it is in your home, go to the garden and get down on your knees and think, what can I see in front of me? Because sometimes when you go in from a different viewpoint, actually it looks fine and looks calm. And then when you get a bit lower, you think, if this is my viewpoint and what I'm seeing, it's total chaos and overwhelming. Would I want to work here in this space? Or would I think, oh, I just tidy that up? Or, oh, hang on, I'll play with you in a minute. I've just got to put this puzzle away. Or, no, don't pull that all out because it will all crumble.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things, if you're wanting to say those phrases, you know that's not a conducive
You must have
learning
been in our
environment.
house yesterday. I was listening to what was going on. Yeah.
But you know that's not a conducive environment. So the first thing is take a step down and have a look at what's going on.
I think that there is key because, again, if you think of our living room, from the shelves up, you've got pretty candles, pictures, everything so set out and organized. And any adult looks at that and thinks, oh, that's great. But then down below is chaos. And like you said there, you pull everything out and it's like not, oh, I'm going to play with whatever it is. I'm not going to play with this dinosaur puzzle. I'm going to pull everything out. Oh, yeah, that will do. And then go from there. So there is no structure to it.
No.
So, yeah.
And I think if we're feeding off what teachers have been studying for years and years and years, teachers have been studying learning environments. It's where Maria Montessori came from. It's where Reggio Emilia came from, the learning environment. How do you facilitate children's independent learning? With the trays in Montessori, it's all very set out. It's all very clear. The desks are clear. They can go to a station. They can come. They can take an activity. They can do the one activity, which develops focus, attention, concentration, and they can put it back. So if we take what teachers have done for years and years, and we bring it into our home, how can we translate all of that learning?
Yeah.
Let's get down, let's look at the environment. If it's not as stimulating in terms of being able to focus on one item at a time, and if it's too overstimulating, it's too overwhelming, take everything out. Just do a clear out. Pull absolutely everything out and start afresh, because you can't kind of half do it and just have a day, an afternoon, whatever it is. And if you don't have the time to do it, you're working full time, just do one cupboard at a time. Just pull it all out and start again and think, do I need everything in that cupboard? Is it age appropriate? Do I have a 6-year-old with their baby board books still in that cupboard? They don't need them anymore. We can wrap them up. We can pass them on. We can give them to a different sibling in a different cupboard. We can give them to charity, etc., etc. So do you need everything that's in there? And then can my child with their little hands access what they need? So to have drawers instead of boxes piled on top of each other, because a little one can't physically lift off 2 boxes, go into the bottom box and get what they need. It's not going to happen. So it's an unrealistic expectation to have them be able to do that. And so once you've got everything out the way, you've put it back, is it labeled so that your child can access it? So what I do in playrooms or bedrooms or spaces with children that are pre-reading is I take it's not very fancy. I take a picture, just like in a classroom, of what's inside the box, print it out and put it on the front of the box. Because then when you go, okay, tidy up time, and the parent says to me, oh, my children don't know how to tidy up. My children can't tidy up. And I go, they can, because they've been tidying up a classroom since they were 2 years old. So they can. But do they know where everything goes? And can they physically put everything back? Because in a classroom they can. And in a classroom it's labeled with pictures. So when the teacher puts the Mission Impossible theme tune on the smart board and the countdown, children can go and be like, okay, well, I know the dinosaurs live here because it's the picture of the box with the dinosaurs. And I know this lives here because that's where it goes. Yeah.
And these are such simple tips as well, that it doesn't matter if you live in a big villa or an apartment, or like you said before, Singapore, quite small living compared to here, that such simple things that again, going back to the teacher side of it, they're things you do every day. As you said, a year 6 class, glue sticks or pictures of glue sticks or roughly stationaries in the same place. So they just know to do it.
Yeah.
And then I'd say they become more proud of our environment as well, don't they?
And that's the point. So the reason that in Japanese culture, it's very important for children to tidy up and clean up after themselves. In a classroom culture, it's very important because as a teacher, I don't have time to tidy up after anywhere from 20 to 30 children. There's no way you can leave whatever you want, wherever you want. And then I'm just going to go around for the rest of my afternoon and pick up after you. It's impossible. And so it's respect for the toys. And it's respect for the fact that you as parents have gone out, worked really hard, purchased these wonderful toys for our super privileged children. They need to be able to have the respect to be able to put it back, look after, and then when they would like to play with it again, no problem. You know where it is. You can go grab that.
Yeah, completely agree. And you kind of going on from your organizational side of it, but then you've also got the, let's say, structural side of it, the furniture, the design of the furniture itself, the lighting, the colors of the room. How does that play a part?
Psychological studies have proven that color can have a big impact on our mood and our development. So if you imagine you're in a dentist chair with the lighting, and then you imagine you're in a spa, it's a very different feel and it's a very different mood.
Yeah.
So color can have a big impact on us. Light, mess, overwhelm, all of these different elements in our surrounding environment affects how we feel, affects how we work, affects how productive we are, and so on. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that not only are the toys accessible, like we said, we want to make sure that when we pull it out, we have a table that's an appropriate height. We have a table that's clear and available for play and not like a storage for all the puzzles that actually you can't quite fit in the cupboard. And you're like, oh yeah, there's a table there, but we can't use it because I've used it for storage.
Yeah.
So you do need to organize your space, but then the furniture needs to be functional, which is what you said. So what we want to do is have pieces that are age appropriate. Can your child sit on a chair with their knees at 90 degrees with their feet flat on the floor? It is an investment in your child's physical development for you to have a chair and table that is an appropriate size for your child. Just like if you walk into an FS1 classroom, you see the little chairs. And if you walk into a year 4 classroom, they're not going to have the same size of furniture. So schools invest in furniture in order to help children's development. There is no reason why you can't do the same at home. And it doesn't need to be crazy expensive. IKEA do a range of chairs at different sizes. But what we want to do is we want to help children with their handwriting skills. If you think about the child in the exam that like lolls on the table, do you know what I mean? That like has to rest their head in their pen. It's not necessarily because they're lazy. It's not necessarily because they're not interested in the subject. What it is they don't actually have the core skills in their body to sit up.
Yeah.
They don't have shoulder stability, elbow stability, wrist stability, and the muscles in their hand to be able to sit straight and concentrate on what they're doing. They're having to concentrate on their physicality. And what we want them to do is concentrate on the writing that they're producing.
Yeah.
So this all happens at toddler stage when we help children learn how to sit on a chair. And when they're playing with Play-Doh, but they're playing with Play-Doh at a table that's clear, that's got lots of space on it, that they're sitting on the chair appropriately. And these are all the skills they're developing while they're playing when you don't realize that they're actually doing that.
I think there's so many subtle bits behind it that you don't realize the benefits that will then come later in life.
Yeah.
And I think the handwriting bit there, a parent sees bad handwriting and they just think, well, they can't do it properly. But there's so many steps before that that you think you need to worry about.
Yeah.
Like the core stability. I only learned that probably a couple of months ago. There was an OT on the podcast. He was saying like, if they've got bad handwriting, the 10 steps we do first before even considering the handwriting.
Yeah.
And then the furniture side, we had a really cool guest who works at a company called Kids Inc. And they focus on children's furniture in schools. And it's literally all about that, the ergonomics of it, making sure it fits correctly, because then it has such good implications for the rest of it. So yeah, I think the furniture side is a big one, the lighting side. Colors, it just needs to be vibrant, something that's warm, something that's inviting.
So there's a balance of colors, I would say. Certain colors evoke different moods. And so if you're wanting something to be a bit calmer, if you're designing a bedroom, you're wanting some cooler colors, some pastel colors, colors that represent calm, sleep.
Yeah.
taking your nervous system back down after it's been stimulated all day. Whereas if you're wanting it to be a bit more of a vibrant space, you can add pops of color. But what I would say is be careful with something being overly stimulating. Because what you want, if you take heed from the Montessori philosophy of learning and teaching, the environments are all very neutral, very plain, because what they believe is that the learning should stand out. So the toy, the engagement, the piece of the object that you're inviting the children to play with should be what they're focusing on and not have distractions all around the room. And so there's a balance. You don't want it to be boring, essentially, but you want it to have a little bit of stimulation in there, but you want it to be able to meld in also to the background. So
like a subtle blend of it
so that
all.
you can focus on what's in front of you and not be distracted, because those are key skills, especially in life now with the rise in ADHD, is what we want children to have is focus and attention skills.
Yeah. And kind of shifting into summer here in Dubai, well, every day after dinner, we go to the park. Either go to the park or see like a little doggy park around there, and we go there. But we know that time is slowly going away. So any tips for kind of the activities, learning spaces as we get into the warmer months here?
It's hard, isn't it, when you can't go outside and children need physical energy. I would say there are some top tips if you're talking about after dinner, so that's before bedtime, wanting to kind of get a bit of physical energy out of their bodies. So there have been studies that have proven that pressure really helps calm the nervous system. So imagine like a sausage roll. You've got your child and you've wrapped them almost like in their duvet or in some blankets or even on cushions, and you push down on their body. Actually has been proven to calm their parasympathetic nervous system. Other things you can do is, living in an apartment in Singapore, you can't always have this space that we are granted the luxury with in Dubai. And so can you do something that's a bit more physical but a bit more contained? Like, can you do 25 star jumps and then 16 running mans? And can you do it on a timer? Oh, you did that in, can you show the kids a stopwatch? Kids love a stopwatch, or like a sand timer. Can you do like little exercises in your living room? Can you push the sofa back a little bit if you don't have enough space and do a mini circuit with them almost? I would say it's really important for children to have physical energy exerted before they go to sleep, before their whole body calms down. So if you can have that, that would be amazing. If you have a toddler, like you have a little one, do you have something like a pickler triangle where it can be folded away and stored in the laundry cupboard with the ironing board, but then brought out just before bedtime, and you can be like up, down, can they go up and over it? Can they go under it? Can you play hide and seek? Could you put a blanket over it? Could you play peekaboo? Just something to get their energy out of them. Could you let them, not advocating for it, but jump on the bed a few times, safely, not falling off, but something to get their physical energy out of them, I think is really important, especially when they can't be outdoors running around.
What about wrestling? My wife always says like, just calm down a little bit. And I'm like, no, I see like people on Instagram, they say wrestling before bed's great.
I think it's about that physical exertion of energy, and it's about that pressure on your body. So I think I'm not necessarily
you're not going to condone
wrestling, but I will say you can wrap them up like a sausage roll.
Exactly.
And put some pressure on the nervous system.
Yeah, for sure. Different learning spaces for different kids. You said there's a rise in ADHD. There's different diagnoses going around. Do you think certain children need different learning environments?
Yes.
Yeah?
I do. I think everyone's an individual. All adults are different as well. So we can't expect a one size fits all. And I think that's really hard in school when you're comparing your child to another one. It's not the same. We're not made the same. Grown-ups are not made the same.
Was similar to you. So I taught in the UK. I was in year 6 in the UK. Then I got a job here and I was grade 1. So I was like, oh my gosh. And went into other grade 1 classrooms, and there's so much going on. There's hot air balloons. There's all of this going on. And as you get older, the displays and the things in school seem to get less. And obviously that's the developmental age of the kids and stuff. But I think there was sometimes too much in early years childhood. And there's just like overpowering. You're like, oh my gosh, there is so much in here. What do I focus on? Like you say, you've got to have different things on the walls for kids to refer to. But when you're looking around and there's literally everything, I feel like there's got to be
I think there's a happy balance.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it can be a bit overstimulating. And what happens is when you are overstimulated, your body never actually calms down.
Yeah.
And then you say to a child, okay, let's do an exam for an hour and a half. Fully concentrate, please. And if you've not practiced it, how can you? So the focus and concentration muscle in your brain is a muscle. You have to exercise that muscle as much as if you were going to do a workout in a gym.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect to suddenly be able to lift super heavy weights in the first time you go. And so what we want to do is at home, I think it's really important to exercise the muscle of focus and concentration in the areas that your child needs to. So what we were saying about everyone being a little bit different, it might be that you need lots of focus and attention. And so let's just have one table clear. Let's have some boxes next to you that are maybe in a cupboard labeled, that are closed off, that if you need them, you can get them. But if you don't need them, they're out of sight. Or it might be that something that's a bit more physical. So maybe you were born with, like my son was born and his stomach muscles were separated. So he had really bad core strength. So we've had lots of physical equipment in my home because that's important for my son.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the beautiful benefit of being able to create a space at home for your child, is you can do whatever they need.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I think that's all walks of life and any educational topic. It's always very specific to that individual, to that family, to that setting.
And that's what we're trying to do in school, right?
Yeah.
Personalization, differentiation, doing different levels and different sets and maths groups, and everything teachers are striving to do is help each individual unique child.
Yeah.
And so we will try as hard as we can in school, but there needs to be help at home too, because learning doesn't stop at the school gates. It continues all the way throughout their life. And so if there's learning that can adapt and help and generate children's learning to be fuller for longer, it's only going to help them. And that's the goal.
Yeah.
The goal for everyone is to help the children.
Do you find that you work with people and they're a bit like that light bulb moment, like, oh gosh, it's not just the school's job. I should be doing this to supplement that, and school supplements what I do, and it's a.
But I think that's education for parents.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a blame situation.
No, not at all. If
I
you've
feel
never
like
done
if you
it,
don't
then why
know,
would you know?
how would you know? Like, I wouldn't know how to set up the technology for a podcast. I'd be completely out of my depth. And so you ask questions and you get help. And if you're a parent, you have this baby and you take this baby home from hospital, and then you're like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And so you learn about potty training, and you learn about feeding, and you learn about nursing, and you learn about all these elements and skills. And then they go to school and you think, okay,
I'm done. But
it's not
no.
done.
So then talk to us a bit about, you've said obviously you're early years specialist, you've taught in early years. The girls are older to 10 and 12. What are their bedrooms supposed to look like, would you say?
So I've taught from early years all the way through to year 6. So I've taught through the whole of primary. And what I will say is, if your girls are 10 and 12, their bedroom's not going to look the same as your little ones. There's no way. But I would like to caveat that sometimes parents come to me and say, if we go a little bit less, I've got like an 8-year-old. So they're going to be 10 and 12 soon. Or I've got a 6-year-old. They're going to be in that TV den wanting space soon. So I won't bother doing a playroom. I'll just make a den now because that'll be a better investment. It's not. Think how much learning happens in the space of a year with your children. Think how much they change from the beginning of an academic year all the way through to the end. So what I will say is, there are age groups that you can caveat in design for sure. The toddler years, the early years, the primary years maybe, and then a little bit more to the tweens and teens. But really design a space focused on the age of your children and let them learn and thrive and create so much learning in a space of a few years, and then know that the environment will change. And so if we're then going back to your tweens, I would say, what are we wanting them? What's the outcome? What do we want for them? So we want them to be able to rest. It's very important, as you know, in teen years to get lots of sleep. We want them to be able to calm their nervous system. We want them to be able to start studying, start having that intrinsic motivation to learn and to push themselves. And we want them to have a fun hangout, that they want to be at home, they want to be here, they want to be still engaging in the family. And so I think what's important is a really good bed, a really good mattress, something that's soft and comfy that they want to dive into at night. Lighting's really important. So do you have study lighting, and do you have calm lighting in a room? Especially in a bedroom. So when they're do you have a good light for reading? There's a balance where it's not too dim, not too bright, that they want to read. It's really, really important for children still to be reading and not just forget about books and go onto screens. And then is there a study space for them? Do they have an appropriate desk space? Is it little and then their computer or their laptop or their iPad is taking up all of that space and they can't actually get a textbook or maybe a textbook and a writing book out on their desk at the same time? Do you have a child that loves screens, which I'm sure is most children? Could you close it away?
Yeah.
Could you have a shutter built in if you're fortunate enough to have a house that you own? And we do a lot of custom carpentry. So I always like to suggest in a tween room that we have the computer, that they need it. They need it for school. They need it for research, for study.
Yeah.
But we have an element where they can close it off and then they can just focus on books. They can focus on reading. If you're in your bed and you're reading and you see something flash up on a computer screen, your attention
that focus is
gone.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is create an environment that gives them the skills that they need, and they don't even realize the environment's helping and aiding them with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think the screen part, we've had a lot of conversations on here about screens, just minimizing those distractions as much as possible needs to be a big thing. I think that's a really important one.
You know, they say like, don't work on, even as an adult, don't work on your laptop and have your phone next to you.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you see that light, you can't help it. And then your focus and attention is completely gone. And it's tenfold for a child. So the expectations that we're having is, you can have your screen here and you can have your phone here, you could have an iPad here, you can have a laptop here. Now go read a book, please.
Yeah. It's often said, go and read a book. It's a punishment, isn't it? You've got to read now for 15 minutes. That should be the enjoyment part of it.
It should be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And you know, we're very fortunate in a world to have technology advancing, but studies have proven that reading for pleasure has a direct correlation with academic success. And so we need and we want our children to read for pleasure, that love that toddlers naturally have for stories. When you sit and you read their reading books to them, and they're like, what's this? What's that? And then they go past picture books and they go into early chapter books and they get into David Walliams and Roald Dahl, and they're getting into all these funny stories and they're getting into the nonfiction weird but trues. And they're like, did you see this? Did you see that? And we take them to library time at year 3 or 4 and they're loving it. And then suddenly it dwindles and it goes because it's a muscle. It requires building. And if you haven't built the muscle up enough when they're younger, and created an environment that you're not wasting time if you've got like a 5 or 6 year old and you're like, oh, well, we'll just make it a den because they'll be 7, 8, 9 soon. Well, actually, let's not put a screen in the playroom. Let's make sure there's the most amazing reading corner with this cool tent den and all these open facing bookshelves so that reading is not just at bedtime. It's all throughout the day and it's a pleasurable activity. If they come home from school and they're knackered and they're tired, maybe they just go into the reading corner and they just dive into a story. And maybe they have some easy picture books so they don't need to concentrate. It's like watching a movie that's not, incredibly cerebral. They dive into a picture book and they just think, this is a lovely activity to do. And that comes from, I think we mentioned earlier about routine and structure. And so I think that's very important to have in terms of how the environment works for you. So the routine and structure of, you were saying, when you finish dinner, you will go to the park. Well, when you come home from school, where do you dump your bags? Do you dump your bags on the floor? Or do you have a cupboard that the bags go in? Do you put your shoes on the shoe shelf? Do you take out your swim kit and shove it in the laundry basket, wherever it is? And then then you get a snack. And then you have what I would call, which I'm happy to go into, an invitation to play or an invitation to learn set up.
Yeah.
And then you know that you've got that time, that's independent learning, and mommy can do what she's doing, daddy can do what he's doing, sisters and brothers are all busy, maybe the older ones are doing homework, maybe the younger ones have got that playtime, and then you all come together. Maybe there's an activity where you can all come together, where it's the park or it's the dinner table or whatever it is, whether it's you promise them a story or a board game or whatever it is. And it's that routine that children thrive off, as a teacher.
Yeah.
And the routine doesn't need to stop at school. It can keep going at home, but if the environment's set up to enhance that routine, makes everyone's life easier.
Yeah, that invitation to play there. So I'm thinking it from my context. All the kids finish at different times at the moment at school. Some days the older 2 have got fixtures and stuff. So as you can imagine, it's a lot calmer with 2 than it is 4. And when the older 2 come home, it's a bit chaotic. But the invitation to play there. So if I'm here with my toddler, how would that work? Just the 2 of us. But then if there's all 6 of us here, would it be the same routine you'd follow, or be something slightly different?
I think you have to trial and error and make it work for your family, for
Yeah.
sure. I can't tell you that one size fits all. I can make some suggestions. And so my suggestions would be, if your toddler is fully focused on an activity before the rest of the older children come home,
Yeah.
then they know, this gives me pleasure, this gives me joy, this is brilliant, and you've set out a really fun activity to engage them. When your other children come home, that's the highlight of their day. Like, their big brothers and sisters are home. So I don't think I would make the expectation, no, you just have to carry on and sit down and I'm now going to deal with the older children. Like, go love your big brothers and sisters, give them a cuddle, give them a snuggle, like have a snack all together, plan for them to have that moment of siblinghood together.
Yeah.
And then be like, okay, and now it's time for your toddler to have a new activity. Human beings of all ages like new, shiny things, which is why toy rotations happen in schools or at homes as well, hopefully. Because when you take something away and you hide it and then you bring it back again, it feels like it's new and shiny and it's not. So a new, shiny activity that's just been recycled would then be for after the snack time, after the together time. And then if your older ones are doing homework, okay, this is the time when we've got homework and your desks are clear. And if you need the screen, it's open. If you don't need the screen, it's closed. And then, are you finished? Does anyone need help? Everyone's kind of got their personalized little moment. And then, okay, it's time for us all to come back together again. Let's be rowdy at the dinner table and talk about our day and do whatever we need to do. And let's all go to the park and help, the older ones help the younger ones, like get their helmet on so they can go on their scooter or whatever it is. Step back. Parents do so much. And I think what we need to do is invite your children to learn. Invite them to be independent. Invite them to problem solve and then go, I trust that you will solve that problem.
Yeah.
I know you will. I have full confidence that you can do that. I can't get my shoes on. Don't worry. And then sometimes I think we're always in a rush.
Yeah, there's always that.
And there's always like, come on, we've got to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And I appreciate in the morning, before you're going to school, there is a rush. But maybe before you're going to the park, there isn't.
No.
And so that's the moment when you learn to tie the shoelaces. And that's the moment when the older sibling helps the baby to put on their shoes and their helmet for their scooter, whatever it is. And you don't do it. Because sometimes I think when grown-ups are doing everything for their children, they're taking away the skills that their children need to learn.
Yeah.
Because it's quicker and easier for you. And this is not about you. This is about them.
But then you think long term, it is easier and quicker for you. It's a weird thing to think about. If I do less now, I'll have to do even less in the future. So yeah, it's definitely
And that's what you want in school. So you're like, oh, I want them to thrive in school and then go work for an amazing company that they're, communicating, collaborating and being the creative director of Google, whatever it is. But how on earth can they get there if they've not practiced the skills that they need? It's like boredom. Children have to be bored in order to learn how to amuse themselves and come out of the boredom. If you never practice a skill, you'll never be able to do it. And boredom is the birthplace of imagination.
100%. Yeah. I read a lot of things recently that schools becoming redundant because they're training for jobs that don't exist yet and things like that. And I always think, could be very true, but they're still learning all of those learning skills. It doesn't matter about content or knowledge. It's the learning skills. It's the communication. It's the problem solving. It's having arguments with other kids and then solving them that you would never have if you don't go to school and do with other children. Yeah, you do it at home with siblings and stuff, but I feel like in a school setting, there's just so many different
it's so important.
Kids, cultures, age groups, all of those things.
And if you think of the curriculum, so if you think of the early years, the EYFS, which is in most schools in Dubai, actually follow the British curriculum. So if we take EYFS, which is Foundation Stage 1, Foundation Stage 2, you have 7 areas of learning. 3 prime areas of learning and 4 secondary areas of learning. Your 3 prime areas of learning at the ages of 3 to 5 are PSED, which is personal, social, emotional development, CL, which is communication and language, and PD, which is physical development. So if you're thinking that the early years curriculum bases those as the prime areas of learning, that's the foundation of where we have to start.
Yeah.
And then we move on. And so that foundation has to carry on all day, throughout the day, every day, Saturdays and Sundays and after 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
because it's only going to help your children thrive through their academic lives.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, your passion for this shines through. I love it. It's fantastic. And you work with individual families, you work with schools. If somebody wanted to work with you, how would they do that?
I work with both. So I work with individual families if they want to set up learning environments at home, and whether that be a new bedroom, a dedicated playroom, a corner behind your sofa, your garden, it doesn't matter, just any space that children are learning in. And then I work with interior designers. So if an interior designer has a full turnkey house, and within that big house, you actually think of it, about 4 rooms are dedicated to the children over the adults. If they want to come to me and say, I know how to design, but I really would like to make the playroom or the children's bedroom educational, then they can come to me as a consultant, and I will help them create their design to be a little bit more on the educational focus as well as the beautiful design focus.
Yeah.
I work with schools, or if you're building a creche or hotels, that kind of thing, any space that children are thriving and learning in, and you're wanting them to make sure that it is a truly educational space.
Fantastic. I'll put all of your information on the show notes
Thank
and stuff.
you.
So if people want to get in contact, they can. I think in my head the whole time, I've just been thinking how I'm going to redesign this house. But even the most simple thing of labeling pictures of where toys go, because that's just going to help with the routines.
Yeah.
And you said there, do your kids pull out everything in one go? And I'm like, yeah, every time.
Yeah, a big basket's not your friend, I'd say.
And then,
smaller baskets.
Annoyingly, we have individual small baskets. Anyway, it's our problem, not anyone else's problem.
We can get going afterwards. Just show me the cupboards.
Yeah. But Hollie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Really
it's a pleasure.
It. As I said before, really interesting episode. And if you've got kids of any ages, I think this is a really interesting episode for you to listen to. As always, if you find it helpful or useful, share it with someone and we'll continue to grow. So Hollie, thanks again.
Thank you.
This has been School Talk. My name is Chris Shrubsole. Bye for now.